Fish Baby Daddy here, showing you a 20-gallon long. It's a grow out tank. Let's get to it. Okay, so I described this 20-gallon long as a grow out tank. So what am I growing out? Well, I got some super red baby bristlenose Plecos in here. Those are growing out. I have some Dwarf Acaras, as little babies. Those things are growing out. And then I also have some Mega Clown Plecos that are growing out in here. So they're all kind of hiding in here. But what else is growing out in here is my Anubius. I have my Anubius bardi that I have crazy glued to some rocks. And I'm really starting to get some new development in these rocks, and they look really good on these plants. So the root structure is binding. You can see this one's kind of taken off, up off the rock. But those roots are really binding to the rock, and they're starting to really grow. When I actually put these Anubias in here, they had some unwanted algae on here. I had them from my 75-gallon tank. And these super reds just acted like a car wash. They were able to polish these guys off, these plants off, and they look really, really good. I'm pretty happy with them. I'm pretty happy with the Anubias, the way they're growing. And I also have this piece of wood in here, and I got some Java moss, and I'm gonna try to get that to grow a little bit more, and hopefully that develops into a nice piece that I can display in another tank. So truly growing out a whole bunch of different things in this tank, and I really like the layout. And then what I'll do is once they start getting bigger, I'll transition them into the 75-gallon, and then they'll be able to grow even bigger because more water volume, bigger surface area gives them an opportunity to grow. So I feed them baby brine shrimp. I'll feed them pellets. And primarily super reds, I'm gonna throw in a zucchini in there, a piece of a zucchini with a fork to weigh it down. And I will probably take it out within half a day, and it's pretty much all gone. Just want to show you that the layout of that 20 long. That sand does a great job of actually gobbling up a lot of the detritus. It'll actually, the bacteria that actually grows in that sand will actually kind of act as a self-cleaning mechanism. I'll still do 50% water changes in here every single week. I'll actually try to mix just a slight bit of soft water, but I'll actually try to put in a lot of hard water in here if I can. And the hard water responds a little bit better with some of the development of some of the fish. That's not always true with all fish, but with some of these, I found that to be real successful. And the Anubius bardi responds well to it, along with the Java moss. So they respond better to a harder water. Just got a little basic light on here I'll put on as a timer for about 8 hours. And I have an Aqua Clear on here with a pre-filter sponge. And a 20-gallon long. Just a side view here, you can really see how that Anubius has really grown from where it originally was on the rock to now actually shooting up. And actually really giving me some good growth with some new leaves. But like I said, I try to really keep the tanks in a nice schedule where I'm doing 50% water changes. When I'm actually taking the water from the tap, I'm really mindful of looking at making sure that the water temperature is relatively the same. Sometimes my tap water is really, really hot down here in Florida, and so what I got to do is I got to let it sit overnight and let it cool down before I introduce it. I don't want big, huge fluctuation temperature changes in my tank that can actually create ick or create some stress on the fish, unwanted stress. I don't want that. So 50% water changes, try to get a lot of tap water in here. It's a little harder water. The fish will respond well to it, and so does the Anubius. A little bit of close-up where you got the Java moss. It's actually binding to the wood. Over time, I'm hoping that will actually be able to develop a little bit more and be able to grow substantially. I like to keep the water temperature around 75, 76, or I just don't even turn the heater on. And I'll actually keep it at room temperature. I try to keep my apartment constantly at 76. So that water stays constant with that temperature. And I know that typically Java moss responds a lot better to colder temperatures, as opposed to if I warm this up to 80, 82 degrees, this Java moss will not respond well at all to it. Wanted to show you the rhizome that's growing across this Anubias. That shows you that it's growing a lot and it's shooting straight across. I always try to be vigilant, make sure that I'm actually putting potassium in this water. Potassium will help the Anubias grow a nice dark green leaf. And I'm always trying to be vigilant when I'm actually seeing new leaves, making sure that they're not yellow. And I want to pay attention to that as much as possible. Potassium is really the only supplementation I'll actually put in this tank. I'll make the mistake once in a while of actually putting something else in here, like an Easy Green. And sometimes if I add a little too much of any kind of fertilizer, I'll start developing algae. Then I gotta back off, do a water change, and then I'll actually try to get those Plecos to kind of do the rest of the work to take care of them. So again, I'm just feeding baby brine in here, throwing in some protein pellets, some carnivore sinking pellets, and then I'll actually throw in some zucchini in here. I do not like feeding zucchini to the Plecos every single day. I will actually feed them every other day. And so I found that they're a little bit more ravenous and they'll actually eat it a lot better if I do that. If I have a tendency to put too much in here every single day, they have a tendency for it to sit there and it kind of fouls up the water. Just want to show a little far away shot so you can actually see the whole length of all the sides of the tank and how it looks. Overall, I think it's pretty healthy. Seeing a lot of growth. The fish are developing well. Just monitoring my water changes every single week. Again, with the 20-gallon long, I think it's a nice mix. When you got baby fish, you can get like a little more surface area than you would a 20-gallon high. Doesn't really take up a lot of space. It can be a nice grow out for you. And then you can transition into another tank, or if you just keep up with your water changes, you may not have to do anything at all besides this 20-gallon long. Well, that about wraps it up here for this video. Until next time, Fish Baby Daddy.